Mogul left when she was pregnant. 3 years later, he encountered his son at a charity event. "Mr. Chen, your 8 a.m. is here," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Marcus straightened his tie, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Another day, another deal to close. He turned, his steps echoing on the polished marble floor as he made his way to the conference room. "Gentlemen," he greeted the room full of investors, his voice confident and charismatic. "Today, we're not just talking about changing the game. We're rewriting the rules entirely." As Marcus launched into his presentation, the room hung on his every word. Graphs and projections flashed on the screen behind him, each one more impressive than the last. But beneath the polished exterior, a nagging emptiness gnawed at him. Later that evening, as the city lights twinkled below, Marcus found himself alone again in his office. He picked up a framed magazine cover, his own face staring back at him, the headline screaming, "Tech's Golden Boy, the unstoppable rise of Marcus Chen." "Unstoppable," he muttered, tracing the word with his finger. The weight of expectation, the constant pressure to innovate and succeed, it was all becoming suffocating. His phone buzzed, another accolade, another invitation to an exclusive event. Marcus sighed, tossing the phone onto his desk. He had everything he'd ever dreamed of, and yet... "Is this really all there is?" he whispered to the empty room, his voice barely audible over the hum of the city below. As he turned to leave, his gaze fell on a small, unassuming photo tucked away in the corner of his desk. A younger version of himself, arms wrapped around a beautiful woman with paint-stained hands and a radiant smile. Sophia. For a moment, the mask of the tech mogul slipped, revealing a flash of vulnerability, of longing for something more than stock options and market shares. But as quickly as it appeared, Marcus pushed the feeling down, straightening his shoulders and stepping into the elevator. The doors closed, whisking him down to the waiting car, to another night of networking and deals. But the image of that photo lingered, a ghostly reminder of a life left behind in the relentless pursuit of success. "Marcus, come look at this." Sophia's excited voice echoed in his memory. He could almost see her now, standing in front of a massive canvas, her dark hair wild and streaked with blue paint. In his mind's eye, he crossed the sunlit studio, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "It's beautiful," he murmured, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Just like the artist." Sophia turned in his embrace, her eyes sparkling with mischief and creativity. "Flatterer," she teased, leaving a smudge of paint on his nose. The memory shifted, and suddenly they were lying on a blanket in Golden Gate Park, a half-empty bottle of wine between them. Sophia's head rested on his chest, her fingers intertwined with his. "Where do you see us in 5 years?" she asked, her voice soft and dreamy. Marcus squeezed her hand, his heart full of hope and ambition. "On top of the world," he replied. "My company will have gone public, and you'll have your own gallery. We'll have a house overlooking the bay, and maybe..." He hesitated, surprised by the intensity of his own desire, maybe a couple of kids running around. Sophia propped herself up on one elbow, her eyes searching his. "You mean that? About the kids?" "I do," Marcus said, surprised to find he meant it. "With you, Sophia. I want it all." The car hit a pothole, jolting Marcus back to the present. He blinked, disoriented, as the sleek interior of his luxury sedan came into focus. The warmth of the memory faded, leaving behind a hollow ache in his chest. "Everything all right, Mr. Chen?" his driver called from the front seat. "Yes, fine," Marcus replied automatically, his voice tight. He loosened his tie, suddenly feeling constricted. Where had that young man gone? The one who dreamed not just of success, but of a life filled with love and family? As the car pulled up to the glittering venue of yet another tech gala, Marcus hesitated before stepping out. For a fleeting moment, he considered telling the driver to turn around, to take him anywhere but here. But the moment passed, and he plastered on his public smile, ready to play the role of the confident mogul once more. Yet as he walked the red carpet, shaking hands and posing for photos, a part of him remained in that sun-drenched park, holding onto a dream that had slipped away. The question that had been nagging at him all day grew louder, impossible to ignore. Was it too late to reclaim the future he'd once envisioned with Sophia? Marcus Chen. Just the man I wanted to see, boomed the voice of David Reeves, Sophia's old friend and gallery owner. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. David, it's been a while, he managed, forcing a smile. David's eyes twinkled knowingly. Indeed it has. How's our rising star? Still burning bright, I see. Can't complain, Marcus replied automatically, then hesitated. How's Sophia? A shadow crossed David's face. Well, you should talk to her yourself, Marcus. It's not my place. Before Marcus could press further, his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant, urgent call from the Tokyo office. They need you now. Marcus excused himself, ducking into a quiet alcove. As he listened to the frantic voice on the other end of the line, detailing a potential crisis with their Asian expansion, he felt a headache building behind his eyes. I understand. I'll be on the next flight out, he heard himself say, even as a voice in the back of his mind screamed in protest. Ending the call, Marcus leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. When he opened them, he found David watching him with a mixture of pity and disappointment. Still running, eh? David said softly. It's not like that, Marcus started to defend himself, but the words rang hollow even to his own ears. David shook his head. You know, she tried to reach you. When she found out. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Found out what? That she was pregnant, Marcus. Sophia's been trying to contact you for weeks. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Marcus gripped the edge of a nearby table for support, his mind reeling. Pregnant? But how? When? About 2 months along now, David replied, his voice gentle but firm. She's scared, Marcus. And she needs you. A cold sweat broke out on Marcus's forehead. Images flashed through his mind, board meetings, product launches, endless nights of coding and strategizing. And all the while, Sophia had been trying to reach him, carrying their child alone. I have to go, Marcus mumbled, pushing past David and heading for the exit. Outside, the cool night air hit him like a slap. He loosened his tie, gasping for breath. His phone buzzed again, the Tokyo office, no doubt wondering about his travel plans. Marcus stared at the screen, his finger hovering over the answer button. In that moment, he stood on a precipice, the weight of his choices bearing down on him. To the left lay the path he'd been walking, success, accolades, the relentless pursuit of his ambitions. To the right, a terrifying unknown, fatherhood, responsibility, the messy, beautiful life he'd once dreamed of with Sophia. His hand trembled as he made his choice, the consequences of his decision stretching out before him like an uncharted road. What would Marcus do? Would he board that plane to Tokyo, burying himself in work and running from the responsibility that awaited him? Or would he find the courage to face Sophia, to confront the life-changing news that could rewrite his entire future? The night held its breath, waiting for Marcus to make his move. I'm sorry, he whispered, declining the call from Tokyo. His hand shook as he pulled up Sophia's contact, her smiling face staring back at him from a photo taken in happier times. He pressed call, each ring amplifying his anxiety. Hello? Sophia's voice was cautious, guarded. Sophia, it's me. Marcus. I just heard. Can we talk? Please? A long pause followed, the silence heavy with unspoken words and buried emotions. It's a bit late for that, isn't it? Sophia's voice cracked slightly, betraying her composure. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his neglect. I know. I've been such a fool. But please, give me a chance to make this right. Another pause. Marcus held his breath, silently praying. Fine, Sophia finally replied. Meet me at our old spot. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The line went dead before Marcus could respond. He lowered the phone, a mix of relief and dread washing over him. Their old spot, the little cafe where they'd shared countless conversations, dreams, and plans for the future. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the cafe an hour early, his nerves frayed. He barely slept, spending the night pacing his penthouse, trying to find the right words to say. As the minutes ticked by, doubts crept in. What if she didn't show? What if it was too late to fix what he'd broken? Just as despair began to set in, the bell above the cafe door chimed. Marcus looked up, and his breath caught in his throat. Sophia stood in the doorway, backlit by the morning sunday. She was as beautiful as ever, but there was a new vulnerability in her stance, one hand unconsciously resting on her still flat stomach. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years fell away. Then reality crashed back in, and Sophia's gaze hardened. "You're early," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Marcus nodded, struggling to find his voice. "Sophia, I don't even know where to begin. How about the truth?" Sophia's voice was quiet but firm. "Why didn't you return my calls? My messages?" The pain in her eyes cut through Marcus like a knife. He wanted to reach out, to take her hand, but he knew he'd lost that right. "I was scared," he admitted, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "I saw your messages, and I panicked. I told myself I was too busy, that the company needed me. But the truth is, I was a coward." Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Do you have any idea what it's been like? Facing this alone, not knowing if you even cared." Marcus felt his own eyes burning. "I do care, Sophia. More than I ever realized. I've been such a fool, chasing after success and forgetting what really matters." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "I know I have no right to ask this, but what do you want to do? About the baby?" Sophia's hand instinctively moved to her stomach, a fierce protectiveness in her eyes. "I'm keeping it. With or without you." The finality in her voice made Marcus's heart clench. This was it, the moment that would define the rest of his life. "I want to be there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "For you, for our child. If you let me. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway." Sophia studied him, her expression unreadable. The tension between them was palpable, years of hurt and betrayal hanging in the balance. "And what about your company?" she asked. "Your big plans?" Marcus reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "None of it means anything without you. Without our family." Sophia's breath hitched, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "How do I know you won't run again when things get tough?" It was the question Marcus had been dreading, the one he'd been asking himself all night. But as he looked into Sophia's eyes, he found his answer. "Because I love you," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I always have. And I'm done running." The world seemed to hold its breath as Sophia weighed his words. Would she believe him? Could the damage be repaired, or was it too late for second chances? The next few moments would determine not just their future, but that of the innocent life growing within Sophia. The air crackled with possibility and the terrifying prospect of irreparable loss. Finally, Sophia took a deep breath. "I want to believe you, Marcus. God knows I do. But words aren't enough anymore. I need to see action." Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. "Anything. Just tell me what you need." Sophia's voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "I need time. And I need to know that you're serious about this. About us. About our baby." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'll prove it to you, Sophia. Every day, for as long as it takes." A ghost of a smile flickered across Sophia's face, but it quickly faded. "It's not going to be easy, you know. This isn't some problem you can throw money at or solve with a line of code." "I know," Marcus replied, his voice soft but determined. "But it's the most important challenge I've ever faced. And I'm not running away this time." Sophia's hand unconsciously moved to her stomach again. "I have a doctor's appointment next week. For the first ultrasound." Marcus's breath caught in his throat. Would it be okay if I came with you?" The vulnerability in his voice seemed to soften something in Sophia's eyes. She nodded slowly. Okay. But Marcus, if you're not there. I'll be there, he interrupted, his voice firm. I promise. As they left the cafe, the morning sun bathed the street in a warm glow. Marcus watched Sophia walk away, her shoulders straight but her steps hesitant. He wanted nothing more than to run after her, to hold her and never let go. But he knew he had to earn that right. Over the next week, Marcus threw himself into preparations. He rearranged meetings, delegated tasks, and for the first time in years, put his personal life before his company. The board was not happy, but Marcus stood firm. The day of the appointment arrived, and Marcus found himself pacing outside the clinic, his heart racing. What if Sophia had changed her mind? What if she didn't show up? Just as panic began to set in, he saw her approaching. Their eyes met, and Marcus felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly knocked him off his feet. You came, Sophia said, her voice a mixture of surprise and relief. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Together, they walked into the clinic, the future stretching out before them, uncertain but full of possibility. As they waited in the examination room, Marcus's eyes were drawn to the ultrasound machine. Soon, he would see his child for the first time. The reality of the situation hit him like a tidal wave. Sophia, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I'm scared. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time since he'd reappeared in her life. She saw not the confident tech mogul, but the vulnerable man beneath, the one she'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Hesitantly, she reached out and took his hand. Me too, she admitted. As the doctor entered the room, Marcus and Sophia exchanged a look of shared apprehension and excitement. This was it, the moment that would make their impending parenthood real. The cool gel on Sophia's stomach, the quiet hum of the machine, and then a rapid, rhythmic whooshing filled the room. Marcus's grip on Sophia's hand tightened as they both stared at the screen in awe. There's your baby, the doctor said softly, pointing to a tiny flickering spot. And that sound? That's the heartbeat. Marcus felt his own heart swell, threatening to burst from his chest. He looked at Sophia, tears streaming down both their faces. In that moment, everything changed. The past, the hurt, the uncertainty, it all faded away, leaving only the promise of new life and second chances. As they left the clinic, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that he would do whatever it took to be worthy of this gift. To be the partner Sophia deserved and the father their child needed. But the road ahead was far from smooth. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. And as they stepped out into the sunlight, both Marcus and Sophia knew that the real challenge was only just beginning. Would their fragile new beginning be strong enough to weather the storms ahead? Only time would tell. One evening, Marcus arrived at Sophia's small apartment, arms laden with groceries and baby books. He found her sitting on the floor, surrounded by paintbrushes and half-finished canvases, tears streaming down her face. Sophia. What's wrong? He rushed to her side, concern etched on his features. She looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. I can't do this, Marcus. I can't paint. My gallery showing is in 2 weeks, and I haven't finished a single piece. Marcus knelt beside her, carefully avoiding the wet paint. Hey, it's okay. You're under a lot of stress. Maybe you just need a break? Sophia shook her head vehemently. You don't understand. This show was supposed to be my big break. Now I'm just a pregnant artist who can't deliver. The pain in her voice cut through Marcus like a knife. He realized, not for the first time, how much Sophia had sacrificed while he'd been absent. What if? He started, then hesitated. What if I talked to the gallery? Maybe we could postpone the show? Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with a mixture of hope and suspicion. You'd do that? Marcus nodded, squeezing her hand. Of course. I'll call David right now. As he stepped away to make the call, Sophia watched him, her emotions a tumultuous mix. Part of her was grateful for his support, while another part resented needing it at all. When Marcus returned, his face was grim. David says he can't postpone. The gallery's booked solid for the next year. Sophia's face crumpled, and Marcus felt his heart breaking. Suddenly, an idea struck him. What if we host the show ourselves? Sophia looked at him, confusion replacing despair. What do you mean? Marcus's eyes lit up as the plan formed. We could rent a space. I have connections, we could get somewhere amazing. We'll invite all the right people, make it the event of the season. For a moment, hope flickered in Sophia's eyes. Then reality set in. That's crazy, Marcus. It would cost a fortune. And even if we could pull it off, I still don't have enough pieces. Marcus knelt in front of her, taking her paint-stained hands in his. Then we'll showcase your journey. The pieces you've created while preparing for motherhood. It's raw, it's real. It tells a story. Sophia stared at him, her artist's mind whirring with possibilities. You really think people would want to see that? I think they'd be fools not to, Marcus replied, his voice soft but filled with conviction. As they sat there, surrounded by the creative chaos of Sophia's work, a fragile hope began to bloom. But beneath the surface, doubt still lurked. Could Marcus really pull this off? Would Sophia's art be ready in time? And even if they succeeded, would it be enough to secure her future, their future, as a family? The clock was ticking, not just for the show, but for the arrival of their child. As they began to plan, both Sophia and Marcus knew that the coming weeks would test their resolve, their creativity, and the strength of their rekindled relationship. The art show loomed on the horizon, a make-or-break moment that would determine not just Sophia's career, but the future of their small, fragile family. The pressure was immense, the stakes higher than any business deal Marcus had ever faced. As night fell over the city, they worked side by side, paint splattered and determined. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with potential pitfalls and moments of doubt. But for now, they faced it together, united by a shared dream and the tiny life growing between them. Marcus rushed in, his suit slightly rumpled from a last-minute meeting. Everything's set. The caterers are on their way, and the guest list is finalized. How are you feeling? Sophia turned to him, her eyes a storm of emotions. Terrified. Excited. Like I might throw up. Marcus chuckled softly, moving to stand beside her. That might be the baby. As they surveyed the room together, a small whimper escaped Sophia's lips. What if no one comes? What if they hate it? Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his touch still tentative but comforting. They'll come. And they'll love it because it's real and raw and beautiful. Just like you. Sophia leaned into him slightly, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. I couldn't have done this without you, Marcus. Thank you. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the gallery doors opening. David walked in, his eyes widening as he took in the transformed space. My God, Sophia. This is extraordinary. Sophia straightened, her artist's pride shining through her nervousness. You really think so? David nodded, moving from piece to piece with growing excitement. It's unlike anything I've seen before. The way you've captured the journey of motherhood, the fears, the joy, it's breathtaking. As more guests began to arrive, the gallery filled with a buzz of excitement. Art critics, collectors, and fellow artists moved through the space, their whispers growing more animated with each passing minute. Sophia found herself swept up in conversations, explaining her process and inspiration. Marcus watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride and a tinge of sadness for the time he'd almost lost. As the evening wore on, a hush fell over the crowd. Marcus looked up to see a distinguished older woman standing before Sophia's centerpiece, a large canvas depicting a swirling galaxy with a tiny, glowing embryo at its heart. Who is that? Marcus whispered to David. David's eyes widened. That's Helena Frost. The most influential art collector in the city. If she likes what she sees. Marcus held his breath as Helena turned to Sophia, her face unreadable. You're the artist? Sophia nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes. Helena's eyes softened as they fell to Sophia's pregnant belly, then back to the painting. You've captured something truly special here, my dear. The universe within us all. I'd like to discuss acquiring this piece, and perhaps commissioning a series. The room erupted in excited murmurs. Sophia stood frozen, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. Marcus moved to her side, steadying her as she swayed slightly. As the night wound down and the last of the guests departed, Sophia and Marcus found themselves alone in the gallery. The air was thick with possibility and unspoken words. Sophia turned to Marcus, her eyes shining. We did it. I can't believe we actually did it. Marcus smiled, reaching out to tuck a stray hair behind her ear. You did it, Sophia. This was all you. As they stood there, surrounded by the visual representation of their journey, the baby kicked, as if sensing the momentous occasion. Sophia laughed, grabbing Marcus's hand and placing it on her belly. Feel that? I think someone's celebrating too. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion as he felt his child move beneath his palm. In that moment, surrounded by art and the promise of new life, the future seemed bright with possibility. But as they locked eyes, the unspoken question hung between them: was this triumph enough to bridge the gap of their past? Could they truly build a future together, or was this just a beautiful interlude before reality set in? The night air whispered of change as they left the gallery, hand in hand, but still uncertain of what tomorrow might bring. The art show had been a success, but their greatest masterpiece and challenge was yet to come. One evening, as they sat in Sophia's living room surrounded by baby books and half-assembled furniture, Marcus's phone buzzed incessantly. He glanced at it, his face tightening with stress. Sophia watched him, a hand absently rubbing her swollen belly. Everything okay? Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's the office. There's a crisis with our new product launch. They need me to fly to New York tomorrow. The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. Sophia's eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. How long? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus couldn't meet her gaze. A week? Maybe 2. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. 2 weeks? Marcus, I'm due in 3 weeks. What if? I know, he interrupted, his voice strained. But this launch could make or break the company. Thousands of jobs are on the line. Sophia stood up slowly, one hand on her back for support. And what about us, Marcus? What about our baby? The pain in her voice cut through him like a knife. Marcus stood, reaching for her, but she stepped back. Sophia, please. I'm trying to balance everything. The company, us, the baby, no, Sophia interrupted, her eyes flashing. You're not balancing anything. You're choosing. Just like before. The accusation hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of their past. Marcus felt his chest tighten. That's not fair. I've been here, haven't I? I've been to every appointment, every class, and now, when it matters most, you're leaving, Sophia finished, her voice breaking. Marcus stood there, torn between his responsibilities and the pleading look in Sophia's eyes. He could feel everything they'd rebuilt starting to crumble. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice barely audible. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, her eyes searching his face. I want you to choose us, Marcus. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus could hear his heart pounding in his ears, feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. If I don't go, if I let this launch fail, everything I've built could fall apart. Sophia nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. And if you do go, everything we've rebuilt might fall apart too. As they stood there, the gulf between them seemed to widen with each passing second. The baby kicked, as if sensing the tension, and Sophia instinctively placed a hand on her belly. Marcus watched the gesture, feeling more torn than he ever had in his life. The successful businessman in him screamed to get on that plane, to salvage the launch and secure his company's future. But the man who had promised to be there, who had sworn he was done running, that man was rooted to the spot, unable to bear the thought of leaving. Marcus started, his voice cracking. I don't know what to do. Sophia's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of love, fear, and disappointment. Yes, you do, Marcus. You just have to decide what matters most. As the night deepened outside, Marcus stood at the precipice of a life-altering decision. The choice he made in the next few moments would define not just his future, but the future of his unborn child and the woman he loved. The clock ticked relentlessly, each second bringing him closer to a departure he wasn't sure he could make. In the stillness of the room, surrounded by the trappings of a life on the verge of beginning, Marcus faced the ultimate test of his commitment. Would he choose the safety of his familiar world of business and success, or take a leap of faith into the uncertain but potentially rewarding realm of family and love? The answer hung in the balance, with the power to heal or shatter the delicate foundation they had built. With trembling hands, he picked up his phone. Sophia's breath hitched, her heart sinking. But instead of booking a flight, Marcus dialed a number. Jake? It's Marcus. I need you to take point on the New York launch, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. I can't leave right now. Family emergency. Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief as Marcus continued, I trust you to handle this. Keep me updated, but only if it's absolutely critical. I'm taking some time off. As he ended the call, the room fell into a heavy silence. Marcus turned to Sophia, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. I choose us, he whispered. I choose our family. Sophia's legs gave out, and Marcus rushed to catch her. They sank to the floor together, holding each other as years of pent-up emotions poured out. I'm so sorry, Marcus murmured into her hair. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what really matters. Sophia pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. Are you sure about this? Your company, Marcus shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. The company will survive. But us? This? He placed a hand on her belly. This is irreplaceable. As if on cue, the baby gave a strong kick. They both laughed through their tears, the tension of the moment breaking. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Marcus threw himself into getting ready for the baby's arrival with the same intensity he once reserved for business deals. He assembled cribs, painted nursery walls, and even attempted to knit a tiny hat, much to Sophia's amusement. One afternoon, as they sat sorting through baby clothes, Sophia suddenly gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. Marcus, she said, her voice tight. I think it's time. Marcus froze, a tiny honesty clutched in his hands. Time? You mean? Sophia nodded, a mix of excitement and fear in her eyes. The baby's coming. Now. In a flash, Marcus was on his feet, grabbing the pre-packed hospital bag and helping Sophia up. As they made their way to the car, he felt a surge of gratitude that he was here, that he hadn't missed this moment. The drive to the hospital was a blur of nervous energy and breathless anticipation. Marcus held Sophia's hand tightly, murmuring words of encouragement as her contractions intensified. As they rushed through the hospital doors, the reality of the situation hit Marcus full force. This was it. He was about to become a father. The fear and excitement were overwhelming, but one look at Sophia's determined face steeled his resolve. We've got this, he said, squeezing her hand. Together. Sophia smiled through her pain, her eyes locked on his. Together, she agreed. As they were ushered into the delivery room, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them and the miraculous life they were about to bring into the world. The challenges of the past and the uncertainties of the future faded away, leaving only the present moment. Marcus took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. He had made his choice, and now, standing on the precipice of fatherhood, he knew it was the right one. The sound of Sophia's determined breathing filled the room as the medical team prepared for the delivery. Marcus stood by her side, a pillar of support, his heart racing with a mix of terror and unparalleled joy. As the first cries of their child echoed through the room, Marcus and Sophia's eyes met, filled with wonder and love. In that moment, they both knew that their journey was just beginning, and that together, they could face anything. As their son, Lucas, grew from a newborn into a curious, babbling infant, life began to find a new rhythm. Marcus had taken an extended leave from his company, much to the shock of his board members, but he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. One sunny afternoon, as Marcus gently rocked Lucas to sleep, Sophia approached him with an envelope in her hand, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What's that?" Marcus asked softly, careful not to disturb the dozing baby. Sophia took a deep breath. "It's an invitation. To a charity gala." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Okay, why do you look so nervous about it?" Sophia bit her lip, hesitating before speaking. "It's being hosted by your company. To celebrate the success of the New York launch." The room fell silent, save for Lucas's soft breathing. Marcus felt a familiar tug of conflict in his chest. He hadn't stepped foot in the office for months, leaving the day-to-day operations to his trusted team. "When is it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Next weekend," Sophia replied, watching him carefully. I think you should go." Marcus's head snapped up in surprise. "What?" "But Lucas," Sophia moved closer, placing a hand on his arm. "We'll be fine for one evening. Marcus, you've been amazing these past months. But I know a part of you misses it. The work, the challenge." Marcus looked down at Lucas, his heart swelling with love. "Nothing could be more challenging or rewarding than this," he said softly. Sophia smiled, her eyes glistening. "I know. But you're allowed to be both a wonderful father and a brilliant businessman. I don't want you to resent us someday for giving up your dreams." Marcus stood carefully, placing Lucas in his crib before turning to Sophia. He cupped her face in his hands, his eyes intense. "You and Lucas are my dream now. The company, it's just a job." Sophia leaned into his touch. "A job you love. A job that's changing the world. Marcus, I'm not asking you to choose anymore. I'm asking you to find balance." As they stood there, the weight of the decision hanging between them, Lucas stirred in his crib. They both turned to watch as their son's eyes fluttered open, a toothless grin spreading across his face as he recognized his parents. In that moment, Marcus felt a shift within himself. He realized that by trying to be solely focused on his family, he was denying a part of who he was and potentially setting an example of sacrifice rather than balance for his son. "Okay," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "We'll go. Together." Sophia's eyes widened. "Together? But who will watch Lucas?" Marcus smiled, an idea forming. "We'll bring him with us. It's about time the company met its youngest and most important stakeholder, don't you think?" Sophia laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. "Are you sure? A baby at a black tie gala?" Marcus nodded, pulling her close. "I'm sure. No more separating our worlds. From now on, we face everything as a family." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with their son cooing softly nearby, the future seemed to open up before them, full of possibilities, challenges, and the promise of a life lived in harmony. The upcoming gala loomed on the horizon, a symbol of the delicate balance they were striving to achieve. Would they be able to blend their old and new lives seamlessly? How would Marcus's colleagues react to this new version of him, the tech mogul turned devoted father? As the sun began to set outside their window, casting a warm glow over the nursery, Marcus and Sophia knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with little Lucas as their guiding star. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "It's not too late to call a sitter." Marcus turned to face them, his heart swelling at the sight. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he said, crossing the room to place a soft kiss on Lucas's forehead. "You two are my world now. It's time everyone knew it." As they stepped out of the limousine in front of the Grand Hotel hosting the gala, flashbulbs exploded around them. Whispers rippled through the crowd as people recognized Marcus Chen, the tech mogul who had seemingly vanished from the public eye. "Is that a baby? Who's the woman?" What happened to the ruthless businessman we all knew? Marcus felt Sophia tense beside him. He reached for her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Together, he whispered. They made their way into the ballroom, all eyes upon them. Marcus could feel the weight of expectation and judgment pressing down on him. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had he made the right choice? Then Lucas let out a delighted squeal, reaching for the glittering chandelier above them. The sound cut through the murmurs, and Marcus couldn't help but laugh. In that instant, all his doubts melted away. Jake, Marcus's right-hand man, approached them, his eyes wide with surprise. Marcus, we didn't think you'd make it. And this must be my family, Marcus finished, his voice firm and proud. Jake, meet Sophia and our son, Lucas. Jake's face softened as he shook Sophia's hand and tickled Lucas's chin. It's an honor to meet you both. Marcus, the board is eager to speak with you. They are by the stage. Marcus nodded, taking a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. He turned to Sophia, you ready? She smiled, adjusting Lucas on her hip. Lead the way. As they approached the group of stern-faced board members, Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. He was no longer the same man who had left months ago, driven solely by ambition and the bottom line. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying across the space. I believe introductions are in order. The board members turned, their expressions a mix of shock and curiosity. Marcus stood tall, one arm around Sophia, the other gently supporting Lucas. This is my partner, Sophia, and our son, Lucas. They are the reason I've been away, and they are the reason I'm here tonight. A tense silence followed. Marcus could see the wheels turning in the board members' minds, calculating the impact of this revelation on the company's image and future. Then, to everyone's surprise, the oldest board member stepped forward, his eyes twinkling. Well, it's about time, Jen. I was beginning to think you were married to your desk. The tension broke, laughter rippling through the group. As conversations began to flow, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He looked at Sophia, seeing the pride and love shining in her eyes. As the night wore on, Marcus found himself navigating a new kind of balancing act. He discussed quarterly projections while cradling a sleeping Lucas and brainstormed marketing strategies between diaper changes. To his amazement, he found that being a father had given him a new perspective on leadership and innovation. Near the end of the evening, as the crowd began to thin, Sophia found Marcus standing by the window, gazing out at the city lights. Penny for your thoughts, she asked softly, coming to stand beside him. Marcus turned to her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I was just thinking, for the first time in my life, I feel truly successful. Not because of the company or the money, but because of you and Lucas. Because I finally understand what really matters. Sophia leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. So, no regrets about bringing a baby to a black tie gala? Marcus chuckled, wrapping his arm around her. Are you kidding? Lucas was the hit of the party. I think the board is already grooming him to be my successor. As they stood there, watching the city below, Marcus felt a sense of peace wash over him. The future was uncertain, full of challenges both personal and professional. But with Sophia and Lucas by his side, he knew he could face anything. The gala had been more than just a company event. It had been a declaration to the world, to his colleagues, and most importantly, to himself. Marcus Chen was no longer just a tech mogul. He was a partner, a father, a man learning to balance ambition with love. As they prepared to leave, Lucas stirred in Sophia's arms, blinking sleepily at his parents. In that moment, looking at his son's innocent face, Marcus knew that every choice, every struggle had led him to exactly where he was meant to be. The night air was cool as they stepped outside, the future stretching out before them like an unwritten story. Whatever came next, they would face it together as a family. One evening, as Marcus was putting Lucas to bed, his phone buzzed with an urgent message. He glanced at it, his face paling slightly. What is it? Sophia asked, noticing his expression. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. The company's facing a potential hostile takeover. The board wants me in New York next week for emergency meetings. Sophia's heart sank. Next week? But Lucas's birthday party? I know, Marcus said, his voice heavy with regret. I'll try to be back in time, but I can't promise anything. The following days were tense, filled with hushed phone calls and late-night strategy sessions. Sophia threw herself into party preparations, trying to mask her disappointment and worry. The night before Marcus was due to leave, he found Sophia in Lucas's room, silently watching their son sleep. I'm sorry, he whispered, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I feel like I'm letting you both down. Sophia turned in his embrace, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You're not. I understand how important this is. It's just... What? Marcus prompted gently. I'm scared, Sophia admitted. What if this is the start of things going back to how they were before? You consumed by work, me and Lucas left behind? Marcus felt a pang of guilt and fear. He cupped Sophia's face in his hands, his gaze intense. That will never happen. You and Lucas are my priority, always. I promise I'll do everything in my power to be back for his birthday. As Marcus boarded the plane to New York the next morning, he felt torn in two. Part of him was exhilarated by the challenge ahead, the familiar rush of high-stakes business. But another part ached to be back home, helping Sophia hang streamers and blow up balloons. The days in New York were a blur of meetings, negotiations, and sleepless nights. Marcus fought tooth and nail to protect the company he had built, all while FaceTiming Sophia and Lucas every chance he got. On the morning of Lucas's birthday, Marcus woke early, his heart heavy. He had a final meeting scheduled, one that could determine the fate of his company. As he adjusted his tie, his phone buzzed with a video call from Sophia. Happy birthday, little man, Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly as he saw Lucas's smiling face on the screen. Dada! Lucas squealed, reaching for the phone. Sophia appeared in the frame, her smile tinged with sadness. We miss you. I miss you too, Marcus replied, feeling a lump form in his throat. More than you know. As he ended the call, Marcus felt a renewed sense of determination. He had to find a way to save his company and make it back home in time. The stakes had never been higher. The meeting stretched on for hours, a tense battle of wills and strategy. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the New York skyline, Marcus made his final move. Gentlemen, he said, his voice steady and confident. I believe we have a deal. One that protects our company, our employees, and our vision for the future. As hands were shaken and documents signed, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had done it. The company was safe. But as he glanced at his watch, his heart sank. It was already evening in San Francisco. He had missed most of Lucas's birthday. Rushing out of the building, Marcus frantically called for his driver. Get me to the airport. Now. As the car sped through the city streets, Marcus made a flurry of calls, pulling every string and calling in every favor he had. Hours later, exhausted but determined, Marcus stood outside his front door. He could hear muffled voices and the soft strains of "Happy Birthday" from inside. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door. The scene that greeted him made his heart swell. Sophia stood in the center of the room, holding Lucas, surrounded by their closest friends and family. A half-eaten cake sat on the table, candles still smoking. As Marcus stepped into the room, a hush fell over the gathering. Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief and joy. You made it, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Lucas, spotting his father, let out a delighted squeal. Dada! Marcus crossed the room in 3 long strides, enveloping his family in a tight embrace. I promised I'd be here, he said, his voice muffled against Sophia's hair. I'm sorry I'm late. As he held his son and the love of his life, surrounded by the warmth of their home and the love of their friends, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. He had found a way to save his company without sacrificing his family. The road ahead would not be easy. Balancing the demands of his career with the needs of his family would always be a challenge. But in that moment, with Lucas's tiny arms around his neck and Sophia's hand in his, Marcus knew that together, they could face anything. The birthday party continued late into the night, filled with laughter, love, and the promise of many more celebrations to come. And as Marcus tucked an exhausted Lucas into bed, he made a silent vow to always fight as hard for his family as he had for his company. For in the end, he realized, they were one and the same, the twin pillars of the legacy he truly wanted to build. One crisp autumn morning, as Marcus was preparing to leave for work, Sophia approached him with an envelope in her hand, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What's this?" Marcus asked, pausing in the act of adjusting his tie. Sophia took a deep breath. "It's an invitation to showcase my work at a prestigious gallery in Paris." Marcus's face lit up with pride. "Sophia, that's amazing. Congratulations." But as he looked closer at her face, he noticed the conflict in her eyes. "What's wrong? Isn't this what you've always wanted?" Sophia nodded slowly. "It is, but the showcase is for 3 months. In Paris. I'd have to leave in 2 weeks." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air between them. Marcus felt his heart rate quicken as the implication sank in. 3 months, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "But what about Lucas? What about us?" Sophia's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know. I want this so badly, Marcus. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. But I can't bear the thought of leaving you and Lucas for so long." Marcus pulled her into a tight embrace, his mind racing. He remembered the pain of being apart from them during his New York trip, and that had only been for a few days. 3 months seemed like an eternity. "We'll figure it out," he said, his voice muffled against her hair. "This is your dream, Sophia. We can't let this opportunity slip away." Sophia pulled back, looking up at him with hope and uncertainty. "But how? You can't leave the company for that long, and Lucas is too young to be without both of us." Marcus fell silent, the gears in his mind turning. Suddenly, his eyes lit up with an idea. What if we came with you?" Sophia's eyes widened. "What? But your work." Marcus shook his head, a smile spreading across his face. "I've been talking to the board about opening a European office. This could be the perfect opportunity to lay the groundwork. I could work remotely for part of the time, fly back when necessary." As the possibility took shape, Sophia's expression transformed from doubt to excitement. "You'd do that?" "Uproot everything for 3 months." Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his gaze intense. "Sophia, don't you see? You and Lucas are my everything. Your dreams are my dreams. We're a family, and families stick together." Tears of joy spilled down Sophia's cheeks as she threw her arms around Marcus's neck. "I love you so much," she whispered. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. Marcus worked tirelessly to set things in order at the company, while Sophia juggled packing and finalizing details for her showcase. Friends and family pitched in to help, amazed at the boldness of their plan. On the day of their departure, as they stood in the airport with Lucas babbling happily in his stroller, the magnitude of what they were doing finally hit them. "Are we crazy?" Sophia asked, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. Marcus squeezed her hand, his eyes twinkling with excitement and a hint of fear. "Probably. But I wouldn't have it any other way." As they boarded the plane, Lucas secure between them, Marcus felt a surge of emotion. This wasn't just a trip or a temporary relocation. It was a statement, a declaration that their family came first, that they were willing to take risks and make sacrifices for each other's dreams. The plane took off, soaring into the clouds, carrying them towards an uncertain but thrilling future. As the California coastline disappeared beneath them, Marcus turned to Sophia, seeing his own mix of emotions reflected in her eyes. "Paris, here we come," he said softly, squeezing her hand. Sophia smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Together," she whispered. As the plane carried them across the ocean, towards new adventures and challenges, Marcus felt a sense of peace wash over him. He didn't know exactly what the next 3 months would bring, but he knew that as long as they faced it as a family, they could overcome anything. The City of Light awaited them, promising not just a showcase for Sophia's art, but a chance for their little family to grow, learn, and strengthen their bonds in ways they had never imagined. As Lucas drifted off to sleep between them, Marcus and Sophia exchanged a look of pure love and determination. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, 3 hearts beating as one, embarking on the greatest adventure of their lives. Sophia stood before a large canvas, her brush moving with confident strokes. Her upcoming showcase had garnered significant buzz in the art world, and she was working tirelessly to perfect her collection. Marcus sat at a makeshift desk in the corner, juggling a video conference with his team back in San Francisco while keeping an eye on Lucas, who was happily stacking blocks on the floor beside him. As Marcus ended the call, he let out a heavy sigh. Sophia turned, concern etching her features. "Everything okay?" she asked, setting down her brush. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his voice. "The board is pushing for me to return. They are not happy with the remote arrangement anymore." Sophia's heart sank. They still had a month left in Paris, and her showcase was just weeks away. "What are you going to do?" Before Marcus could answer, Lucas toddled over, holding up a block with a triumphant grin. "Dada, look." Marcus scooped up his son, forcing a smile. "That's amazing, buddy. You're getting so good at building." As he held Lucas, Marcus's eyes met Sophia's, and they shared a moment of unspoken understanding. The delicate balance they had worked so hard to maintain was once again being tested. Later that night, after Lucas was asleep, Marcus and Sophia sat on their small balcony, the twinkling lights of Paris spread out before them. "I don't want to leave," Marcus said quietly, breaking the silence. "These past 2 months, watching you thrive, seeing Lucas experience a new culture. It's been incredible." Sophia reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "But your company needs you." "I understand, Marcus. We knew this wouldn't be easy." Marcus turned to her, his eyes filled with determination. What if I didn't go back? What if we stayed?" Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "Stayed? In Paris? But your company, our life back home." "I've been thinking about it for weeks," Marcus admitted. "Watching you pursue your passion, seeing how happy we all are here. Maybe it's time for a change. I could step down as CEO, take on an advisory role. We could build a life here." The possibility hung in the air between them, thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Sophia's mind raced with the potential implications, leaving behind their friends, family, the life they had built in San Francisco. But there was also an undeniable excitement at the prospect of a fresh start, a new adventure as a family. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is a huge decision, Marcus. Your company has been your life's work." Marcus cupped her face gently, his gaze intense. "You and Lucas are my life's work now. The company will survive without me at the helm. But I don't want to miss another moment of our family's journey." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as the enormity of his words sank in. "But what about your dreams? Your ambitions?" Marcus smiled softly, wiping away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "My dreams have changed, Sophia. I want to see you conquer the art world. I want to watch Lucas grow up in a city filled with history and culture. I want us to build something beautiful together." As they sat there, the distant sound of accordions drifting up from the street below, Sophia felt a surge of love and admiration for the man beside her. The Marcus she had first fallen in love with would never have considered such a radical change. But this Marcus, the devoted father, the supportive partner, was even more remarkable. "Are we really considering this?" she asked, a mix of fear and excitement in her voice. Marcus nodded, squeezing her hand. "We are. But it's a decision we need to make together. As a family." The weight of the moment settled around them. This wasn't just about staying in Paris, it was about redefining their entire future. It was a leap into the unknown, fraught with risks and uncertainties. As the night deepened around them, Marcus and Sophia sat in contemplative silence. The city of light spread out before them like a canvas of possibilities. The decision they would make in the coming days would shape not just their lives, but Lucas's as well. Would they take the leap, embracing a new life in a foreign city? Or would the pull of home and familiarity prove too strong to resist? As they held each other close, both Marcus and Sophia knew that whatever they decided, it would be a choice made with love, courage, and the unshakable bond of family. The future stretched out before them, a thrilling blend of uncertainty and potential. In the quiet of the Parisian night, surrounded by the whispers of a city steeped in art and romance, they stood on the precipice of their greatest adventure yet. On the morning of the showcase, Marcus awoke early to find Sophia's side of the bed empty. He padded softly through their apartment, following the faint sound of music to her makeshift studio. There he found her, standing before her centerpiece, a massive canvas that seemed to capture the very essence of their journey together. Bold strokes of color intertwined with delicate lines, creating a visual symphony that took his breath away. "Sophia," he whispered, not wanting to startle her. She turned, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night, but shining with a mix of excitement and fear. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, her voice trembling. Marcus crossed the room, enveloping her in his arms. "You are more than ready. Your work is breathtaking. Tonight, the world will see what I've always known, that you're an extraordinary artist." Sophia buried her face in his chest, drawing strength from his embrace. "What if they don't understand it? What if I've made a terrible mistake bringing us all here?" Marcus pulled back slightly, lifting her chin so their eyes met. "Listen to me. No matter what happens tonight, you've already won. You took a leap of faith, you pursued your passion, and you created something beautiful. Our family is stronger for it." Tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks as she nodded, a small smile breaking through her anxiety. "We still haven't decided, you know. About staying." Marcus wiped away her tears gently. "I know. But let's focus on tonight. Tomorrow, we'll face the future together." As evening fell, the gallery buzzed with anticipation. Art critics, collectors, and curious Parisians mingled, their excited whispers filling the air. Marcus stood proudly by Sophia's side, Lucas perched on his hip, as they greeted guests and fielded questions. Suddenly, a hush fell over the crowd as a distinguished older woman entered the gallery. Sophia's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. "That's Madame Rousseau," she whispered urgently. "The most influential art critic in Paris." They watched with bated breath as Madame Rousseau made her way through the exhibit, her expression inscrutable. When she reached Sophia's centerpiece, she stood silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she turned, her eyes seeking out Sophia in the crowd. As their gazes met, Madame Rousseau's stern expression softened into a smile. "Magnifique," she declared, her voice carrying across the gallery. "A triumph of emotion and technique. Mademoiselle, you have captured the very essence of love, family, and the courage to chase one's dreams." The gallery erupted in applause. Sophia stood stunned, tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. Marcus pulled her close, his own eyes glistening with pride. As the night wore on, praise continued to pour in. Collectors vied for Sophia's pieces, and offers for future shows came pouring in. It was more than they could have ever dreamed. In a quiet moment amidst the chaos, Marcus pulled Sophia into a secluded corner. Lucas had long since fallen asleep in a makeshift bed in the gallery office, watched over by a kind staff member. "You did it," Marcus said softly, cupping Sophia's face in his hands. "You took Paris by storm." Sophia laughed, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. "We did it. I couldn't have done any of this without you and Lucas." As they stood there, surrounded by the fruits of Sophia's labor and the buzz of their new Parisian life, the decision they had been grappling with suddenly seemed clear. Marcus took a deep breath, his eyes locked on Sophia's. "Let's stay," he said simply. "Let's make Paris our home." Sophia's eyes widened. "Are you sure? What about the company? Our life back in San Francisco?" Marcus smiled, a sense of peace settling over him. "I'm sure. Watching you tonight, seeing what we've built here. I know this is where we're meant to be. The company will survive, and we'll find a way to make it work. But this, right here? This is our future. Sophia threw her arms around Marcus's neck, laughing and crying at the same time. As they held each other tight, the sounds of the successful showcase washing over them, they both felt the thrill of a new chapter beginning. Their life in Paris stretched out before them, full of promise and possibility. There would be challenges, of course, a new language to master, business to manage from afar, a child to raise in a foreign land. But as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Marcus and Sophia knew that together, they could face anything. The city of light had become their city of love, a family, of dreams realized. And as they rejoined the celebration, hand in hand, they stepped confidently into their new life, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. The night air was thick with potential as they left the gallery, the streets of Paris welcoming them home. Their journey had taken an unexpected turn, but it had led them exactly where they were meant to be, together, in love, and chasing their dreams as a family. Lucas, now a precocious 6-year-old fluent in both English and French, was regaling his parents with tales from his first week of school. Sophia listened with a smile, her hands absent-mindedly caressing her swollen belly. Their second child, a daughter, was due in just a few weeks. Marcus watched his family with a sense of contentment he never thought possible. He had successfully transitioned to an advisory role in his company, overseeing European operations while maintaining a work-life balance that allowed him to be present for his family. As Lucas finished his story and scampered off to get ready for school, Sophia turned to Marcus, her eyes shining with a mix of love and excitement. "I can't believe how much our lives have changed," she said softly. "Sometimes I wonder if we're dreaming." Marcus leaned in, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "If it's a dream, I never want to wake up." Their moment was interrupted by the chiming of Marcus's phone. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing slightly. "What is it?" Sophia asked, noticing the change in his expression. Marcus hesitated before answering. "It's the board. They want me back in San Francisco. Permanently." The words hung heavy in the air, threatening the idyllic life they had built. Sophia's hand instinctively went to her belly, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you going to do?" Before Marcus could respond, Lucas burst back into the room, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Papa, are you taking me to school today?" Marcus forced a smile, ruffling his son's hair. "Of course, buddy. Let's go." As they walked hand in hand through the charming Parisian streets, Marcus's mind raced. The company he had built from the ground up needed him, but so did his family. The life they had created in Paris was everything he had ever wanted, yet the pull of his old ambitions tugged at him. Dropping Lucas off at school, Marcus found himself wandering aimlessly through the city, lost in thought. He ended up at the Pont des Arts, staring out at the Seine, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. A familiar voice broke through his reverie. "I thought I might find you here." Marcus turned to see Sophia approaching, her face a mixture of concern and understanding. He reached for her hand, drawing her close. "How did you know?" he asked softly. Sophia smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "This is where you always come when you need to think. It's where we decided to stay in Paris, remember?" Marcus nodded, the memory washing over him. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the boats glide by on the river. "I don't know what to do, Sophia," Marcus finally admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "The company needs me, but the thought of leaving all this behind." Sophia squeezed his hand, her voice gentle but firm. "Marcus, look at me." He turned, meeting her gaze. She continued, "5 years ago, you made a choice. You chose us, this life we've built together. It hasn't always been easy, but it's been beautiful." Marcus nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. "It has. God, it has." Sophia placed a hand on her belly, her eyes never leaving his. "Whatever you decide, we're in this together. If you feel you need to go back, we'll figure it out. But remember why we stayed in the first place." As if on cue, a strong kick from their unborn daughter made them both laugh. The tension of the moment broke, replaced by a surge of love and certainty. Marcus pulled Sophia into a tight embrace, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of their child between them. In that moment, he knew. The decision wasn't really a decision at all. "We're staying," he whispered, his voice filled with conviction. "This is our home now. The company will understand, and if they don't, well, maybe it's time for a new chapter in my professional life too." Sophia pulled back slightly, searching his face. "Are you sure? I don't want you to resent us someday." Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his eyes shining with love and certainty. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You, Lucas, this little one on the way, you're my everything. Paris is our home, and no corner office in San Francisco could ever compare to the life we've built here." As they stood there on the bridge, the heart of Paris beating around them, Marcus felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. The path ahead was uncertain. He would need to have difficult conversations with the board, possibly even step down entirely. But he knew, deep in his soul, that he was making the right choice. The sun broke through the clouds, bathing them in warm light. Marcus placed a hand on Sophia's belly, feeling another kick from their daughter. "Well, little one," he said softly, "looks like you'll be a Parisian after all." Sophia laughed, the sound carrying across the Seine like music. As they turned to head home, hand in hand, the city seemed to embrace them, welcoming them into their next chapter. The future stretched out before them, filled with promise and possibility. There would be challenges, of course, but together, they could face anything. For in choosing love, family, and the life they had built, Marcus and Sophia had found something far more precious than any corporate success. They had found home. "She's perfect," he whispered, gently stroking the baby's cheek. "Just like her mother." Sophia looked up at him, her face a mixture of love and exhaustion. "We did it, Marcus. She's here." A soft knock at the door interrupted their moment. Lucas peeked in, his eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. "Can I see my sister now?" Marcus beckoned him over, lifting him onto the bed. "Come meet your little sister, buddy." Lucas leaned in, studying the tiny face with wonder. "She's so small," he whispered. "What's her name?" Sophia and Marcus exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them. "Camille," Sophia said softly. "Camille Ava Chen." As the family huddled together, marveling at their newest member, Marcus felt a wave of emotion wash over him. This was everything he had ever wanted, everything he never knew he needed until that fateful day when he chose love over ambition. The peaceful moment was interrupted by the buzzing of Marcus's phone. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing slightly. It was Jake, his former right-hand man, now CEO of the company back in San Francisco. "I should take this," Marcus said apologetically, stepping out into the hallway. "Marcus," Jake's voice came through, tinged with urgency. "I know this is terrible timing, but we need you. The merger we've been working on is falling apart. The board is in panic mode." Marcus leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. He had known this call would come eventually. But he hadn't expected it on the day his daughter was born. "Jake, he began, but was cut off. "I know you've stepped back, but you're the only one who can salvage this. We need you in San Francisco, as soon as possible." Marcus glanced back into the room, seeing Sophia's questioning gaze. He felt torn, the old pull of his corporate life warring with his commitment to his family. "I can't, Jake," he said finally, his voice firm. "My daughter was just born. I'm needed here." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Jake spoke again, his voice was softer. "I understand. Congratulations, by the way. But Marcus, the board is talking about selling. If this merger fails, everything you built could be dismantled." The weight of the words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The company he had poured his heart and soul into for years was on the brink of collapse. Could he really stand by and watch it crumble? As he ended the call, promising Jake he'd think about it, Marcus felt the familiar tension creeping back into his shoulders. He re-entered the room, trying to mask his turmoil. But Sophia knew him too well. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Marcus sank into the chair beside her bed, running a hand through his hair. The company, they are in trouble. They want me back in San Francisco. Sophia's grip on Camille tightened slightly. For how long? I don't know, Marcus admitted. Possibly for good. The room fell silent, the joy of moments ago replaced by a heavy uncertainty. Lucas looked between his parents, sensing the tension. Are we leaving Paris? He asked, his voice small and worried. Marcus reached out, pulling his son close. I don't know, buddy. We have some big decisions to make. As he held Lucas and gazed at Sophia and Camille, Marcus felt his heart being pulled in two directions. On one side was the life they had built in Paris, the family he adored, the peace he had found. On the other was the company he had created, the legacy he had thought he'd left behind but that now called out to him once more. Sophia's voice broke through his thoughts. Whatever you decide, Marcus, we're in this together. Just like always. He met her gaze, seeing the unwavering support there, but also the fear of what this could mean for their family. Camille stirred in her arms, a tiny reminder of all they had to lose. As the night deepened outside the hospital window, Marcus found himself at another crossroads. The decision he would make in the coming days would shape not just his future, but that of his entire family. Could he find a way to save his company without sacrificing the life they had built? Or would he have to choose, once and for all, between his two great loves, his family and his life's work? The Parisian night held its breath, waiting for an answer that Marcus himself didn't yet know. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves in the nearby park turned golden, Marcus sat at the kitchen table, his laptop open before him, dark circles under his eyes. Sophia entered, Camille cradled against her chest, and Lucas trailing behind her. Papa, you promised we'd go to the park today, Lucas said, his voice tinged with disappointment. Marcus looked up, guilt washing over him as he saw the hope in his son's eyes. I'm sorry, buddy. I just need to finish this call, and then we'll go, okay? Sophia's gaze met his, a mixture of concern and understanding in her eyes. She knew the toll this situation was taking on all of them. As Marcus turned back to his screen, he heard Sophia's soft voice. Come on, Lucas. Let's get ready. Papa will join us soon. The sound of the door closing behind them felt like a physical pain in Marcus's chest. He rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of his choices bearing down on him. Hours later, as the sun began to set, Marcus finally emerged from his makeshift office. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. He found Sophia in the nursery, gently rocking Camille to sleep. They are still at the park, aren't they? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia nodded, her eyes filled with a sadness that cut Marcus to the core. Marcus, we can't keep going on like this. You're here, but you're not here. Lucas is starting to feel it, and soon, Camille will too. Marcus leaned against the door frame, feeling utterly defeated. I know. I'm trying, Sophia. I'm trying to save the company and be here for you all, but I feel like I'm failing at both. Sophia placed Camille in her crib and crossed the room to him, taking his hands in hers. Maybe it's time to let go, Marcus. The company has been your baby for so long, but now you have real babies who need you. As if on cue, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the apartment, followed by Lucas's excited chatter. Marcus felt his heart constrict. He had missed another day with his son, another precious moment he could never get back. Sophia squeezed his hands. Go. Be with him now. And tonight, after the kids are asleep, we need to talk. Really talk. Marcus nodded, steeling himself for the conversation he knew was coming. He found Lucas in the living room, excitedly recounting his day at the park to his stuffed animals. Hey, buddy, Marcus said, kneeling down beside him. I'm so sorry I missed our park day. Can you tell me all about it? Lucas looked up, his eyes lighting up at his father's presence. As he launched into a detailed description of the ducks he had fed and the new friends he had made, Marcus felt a shift within himself. The joy in his son's voice, the simple pleasure of a day in the park, these were the things that truly mattered. Later that night, After both children were tucked in bed, Marcus and Sophia sat on their small balcony, the lights of Paris twinkling around them. The weight of their impending decision hung heavy in the air. "I can't do this anymore, Sophia," Marcus finally said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I can't keep trying to live in two worlds. It's tearing me apart, and it's hurting our family." Sophia reached out, taking his hand. "What are you saying, Marcus?" He took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of fear and relief wash over him. "I'm saying, I'm ready to let go. Completely. I'll step down from the company, sell my shares. We'll figure out our life here, together, without the constant pull of San Francisco." Sophia's eyes widened. "Are you sure? This is your life's work we're talking about." Marcus smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time in weeks. "No, Sophia. You, Lucas, Camille, you're my life's work now. The company was just a stepping stone that led me here, to this moment, to this family we've created." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as she leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "I love you, Marcus Chen. More than I ever thought possible." As they sat there wrapped in each other's arms, the future seemed to unfold before them. There would be challenges ahead, financial adjustments, career shifts, the ongoing adventure of raising their children in a foreign country. But for the first time in months, Marcus felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had made his choice, not out of obligation or fear, but out of love. The path ahead was uncertain, but he knew with unwavering certainty that as long as he had Sophia and their children by his side, he could face anything. The Parisian night embraced them, a gentle breeze carrying the promise of new beginnings. Tomorrow, Marcus would make the calls that would change their lives forever. But tonight, in this moment, he was simply a man deeply in love with his family and the life they had built together. As they headed inside, hand in hand, Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. He had finally found the balance he had been searching for all along, not in the boardrooms of San Francisco, but in the heart of Paris, in the love of his family. On a warm summer evening, as the family celebrated Lucas's 10th birthday in their favorite park, Marcus found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Camille, now 5, chased butterflies nearby, her laughter a melody that never failed to make his heart swell. Sophia approached, a gentle smile on her face as she handed him a glass of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts." Marcus pulled her close, planting a soft kiss on her forehead. "Just thinking about how lucky we are. How different things could have been if we'd made different choices." Their moment was interrupted by Lucas, who came bounding over with excitement sparkling in his eyes. "Mom, Dad. Can I tell them now? Please?" Sophia laughed, ruffling her son's hair. "Go ahead, sweetheart. It's your moment." Lucas turned to the gathered friends and family, his chest puffed out with pride. "I got accepted into the junior art program at the Louvre." A chorus of cheers and congratulations erupted. Marcus felt a surge of pride so intense it nearly overwhelmed him. His son, following in his mother's artistic footsteps, was carving out his own path in this city they now called home. As the celebration continued, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, his brow furrowing slightly as he saw the name on the screen, Jake, his former colleague from San Francisco. Excusing himself, Marcus stepped away to take the call. "Jake? It's been a while. Is everything okay?" Jake's voice came through, a mix of nostalgia and something else Marcus couldn't quite place. "Marcus, old friend. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I have some news." Marcus felt a flutter of anxiety in his stomach. "What kind of news?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "The company, it's being sold to a tech giant in Silicon Valley. The deal's almost finalized." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The company he had built from the ground up, the one he had walked away from for the sake of his family, was about to become just another acquisition in the tech world. "I see," he managed, his voice tight. "And you're calling to?" Jake cleared his throat. "To offer you a chance to buy it back. Before the deal goes through. The board, they remember what you built, Marcus. They are willing to give you first refusal. Marcus felt the world tilt on its axis. Here it was a chance to reclaim his old life, to prove that he could have it all. The ambitious businessman he once was whispered seductively in his ear, painting pictures of renewed success and global influence. I need some time to think about this, Jake, he said, his mind racing. Of course, Jake replied. But not too much time. The offer stands for 48 hours. After that, it's out of my hands. As Marcus ended the call, he turned back to the party, seeing his family and friends laughing and celebrating. Sophia caught his eye, her smile fading as she saw the conflict written on his face. She made her way over to him, concern etching her features. Marcus? What is it? He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him once again. It's the company. There's a chance to buy it back. To save it from being swallowed up by a tech giant. Sophia's eyes widened, a mix of emotions flashing across her face. Oh, Marcus. What are you thinking? Before he could answer, Lucas called out, Dad. Come on, it's time for cake. Marcus forced a smile, pushing down the turmoil within. We'll talk later, he whispered to Sophia, squeezing her hand. As they gathered around the birthday cake, Lucas beaming with joy, Marcus felt torn between two worlds once again. The life he had built here in Paris, filled with love and family and simple joys, stood in stark contrast to the allure of his former corporate success. The candles flickered on the cake, casting dancing shadows across the faces of his loved ones. In that moment, Marcus realized he stood at another crossroads. The decision he would make in the next 48 hours would not just affect him, but the future of his entire family. As Lucas blew out the candles, cheers erupting around them, Marcus caught Sophia's eye. The question hung unspoken between them: would he choose to reclaim his past, or fully embrace the life they had built together? The Parisian twilight deepened around them, the city of light holding its breath, waiting to see which path Marcus would choose. The clock was ticking, and the future of the Chen family hung in the balance. Talk to me, Marcus, Sophia said softly, her hand resting gently on his arm. What are you thinking? Marcus let out a long, shaky breath. I don't know, Sophia. Part of me wants to leap at this chance. To prove that I can still be that person, that I didn't just walk away from everything I built. Sophia's grip tightened slightly. And the other part? He turned to her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. The other part is terrified. Terrified of losing this life we've created, of disappointing you and the kids. Of becoming that person again who was never really present. Sophia stepped closer, cupping his face in her hands. Marcus, listen to me. You have nothing to prove. Not to me, not to the kids, not to anyone. The man you are now, the father, the husband, the artist in your own right, that's the man I fell in love with. Marcus leaned into her touch, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. But what if I regret not taking this chance? What if years from now, I look back and wonder, what if? Sophia's eyes blazed with an intensity that took his breath away. Then we'll face that together. But Marcus, ask yourself this: when you're old and grey, looking back on your life, what will you treasure more? The memories of board meetings and corporate takeovers, or the sound of our children's laughter echoing through the streets of Paris? Her words hit him like a physical force, cutting through the fog of indecision. In that moment, with perfect clarity, Marcus saw two possible futures stretching out before him. In one, he was back in San Francisco, at the helm of his company once more. Successful, powerful, but always feeling the pull of the family he had left behind. In the other, he was here in Paris, watching his children grow, holding Sophia's hand as they explored the city they had come to love, creating a life rich with experiences and love. Marcus pulled Sophia close, burying his face in her hair. I'm scared, he whispered. Of what? She asked, her voice muffled against his chest. Of letting go completely. Of closing that door forever. Sophia pulled back, meeting his gaze with fierce determination. Then don't close it. Transform it. Use everything you've learned, everything you've become, to create something new. Something that doesn't require you to choose between your passions and your family. As her words sank in, Marcus felt a spark of inspiration ignite within him. An idea began to form, hazy at first, but growing clearer with each passing moment. "Sophia," he said, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation, "what if we didn't just let the company go? What if we transformed it into something that aligns with our life here?" Sophia's eyes widened with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Marcus's words tumbled out in a rush. "A foundation. We could turn the company into a foundation that supports arts education for underprivileged kids. Combining my business acumen with your artistic vision. We could start here in Paris, but expand globally. Giving back, nurturing creativity, all while staying true to the life we've built." As he spoke, Marcus could see the idea taking root in Sophia's mind. Her eyes lit up with excitement. "Marcus, that's brilliant. It's everything we believe in, everything we want to teach our children." For the first time since Jake's call, Marcus felt the tension leave his body. He pulled Sophia close, kissing her deeply. "We can do this," he murmured against her lips. Together. As they stood there wrapped in each other's arms, the future seemed to unfold before them once more. But this time, it wasn't a choice between two worlds. It was a beautiful fusion of everything they had been and everything they had become. The next morning, as the first light of dawn painted the Parisian sky, Marcus made the call to Jake. His voice was steady, filled with a confidence born of love and purpose. "Jake, I've made my decision. I'm not buying back the company. But I have a proposition that I think will benefit everyone." As Marcus outlined his plan for the foundation, he felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. This wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. A chance to create a legacy that honored both his past and his future. Sophia appeared in the doorway, Lucas and Camille sleepily clinging to her sides. As Marcus met her gaze, he saw all the love and support he would ever need reflected in her eyes. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with new obstacles and learning curves. But as he looked at his family, bathed in the golden light of a Parisian morning, Marcus knew that together, they could face anything. The city of light had given them so much: a home, a fresh start, a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. Now, it was their turn to give back, to create something that would touch lives far beyond their